Welcome everybody to the WEJF Impact Meeting for April 2023. For those of you who don't know me, I don't think that's a lot of you on this call, but a few of you don't know me yet. My name is Allie Lynch, and I'm the Executive Director and sole employee of the Wisconsin Equal Justice Fund. Almost all of you on the call know that WEJF is here to raise private funds for civil legal aid in Wisconsin. We raise funds for the three largest providers of civil legal aid in Wisconsin. That's Legal Action of Wisconsin, Disability Rights Wisconsin, and Judicare Legal Aid. And you'll hear from one representative of each of those organizations later on the call to hear a client success story that they've had in their recent work. We're going to cover WEJF news today in this call. We're going to talk about some access to justice news going on in the state. We're going to, like I said, hear our client success stories from our providers, and then we're going to see our 2022 annual campaign final results. The fiscal year for WEJF runs through March 31st. So we just finished up our most recent annual campaign, and I'm going to share that final result with you, that final number, towards the end of our call. So, a little bit of highlights, first of all. These are our campaign highlights, really, that we've seen in our 2020 campaign this past year. We got a $50,000 grant from the Packers. That was the coolest thing of the year. We've never had a $50,000 donation to WEJF, never had a donation that large. That was really exciting. And of course, it's the Green Bay Packers, so it's just exciting to have any attention from them. That gave us a nice springboard into getting on the local news in Madison. We were highlighted. Rachel Fox Armstrong is the communications director for Legal Action, and myself were interviewed by the local Madison news station, and we're on the 10 o'clock news. So that was really exciting that we got to have some public exposure for our little organization. In 2022, we had 70 first-time donors, we had 232 repeat donors, and we have 8 monthly donors. And those monthly donors are really important to us, and we really are so grateful for their support, because we get those monthly donations. We don't have to wait until the busy time of the fundraising year, which is usually the end of the calendar year for most folks. Most donations come in at the end of the year. We don't have to wait for that money to come in. With these monthly donors, we have constant revenue coming in, which helps us continue our operations and just ensures that we have fewer potential for financial problems, which we haven't had at any time in recent years, but staying on top of that stuff really helps. We also this year doubled the amount raised from corporate grants compared to 2021, which is really cool. And we actually had a 1,094% increase in our foundation giving compared to 2022. So those were huge increases and really helped us get to the number that I'm going to share with you later. As far as access to justice news goes in Wisconsin in general, there are always some things going on. And one of the things we have going on right now is state legislators are meeting, Joint Finance Committee for the state, and state legislators are meeting and discussing the budget, what's going to be in the state budget coming up here for the 2023 to 2024 biennium. We have been working, WEJF is a member of the Civil Legal Aid Organization, Civil Legal Aid Alliance of Wisconsin. And members of that alliance also include Legal Action and Judicare and Disability Rights, as well as other civil legal aid organizations in the state. We've all gotten together and we've been working on this effort to try and get state funding for civil legal aid. Our neighboring states all have good state funding, but Wisconsin is falling behind. So we're trying to get that in place. Something else that we've been working on in terms of access to justice in Wisconsin is we've been working on a website that we're creating, the legal help, I think it's going to be called Law Help Wisconsin. And we're putting it together so that people who are representing themselves in legal proceedings can get more resources more readily available from one place. So they go to this website, they can type in their issue and find resources. They can find civil legal aid providers that they can be referred to, that they can then contact. And in some cases, they can even fill out an online intake form for those civil legal aid providers to try and streamline the process, try and make it easier, try and make it mobile friendly, try and meet clients where they're at, people who need help, try and reach them in a way that's accessible for them. So that's what we're working on more broadly. But as far as WEJF goes, like I said, we raise private funds for disability rights, legal action, and Judicare. And now I want to introduce to you 3 representatives from those organizations. Brian, Lauren, and Frankie are here. They're going to each share with us just quick little 5-minute story or less about a client that they've served recently and what kind of impact their help had on that person's life. So Brian, if you don't mind, you can turn your camera on, and I'm going to turn it over to you for your story.
Great. Thank you so much, Ellie. As she said, my name is Brian Ullman. I'm an Elder Rights Project attorney at Judicare, located in Wausau. So the case that I'm going to talk about today involves an 89-year-old gentleman who contacted us in the fall of last year. When he contacted us, he was currently living in an assisted living home and had some deep concerns about how to pay for this. He was very low income. And it wasn't sure how that was going to go on. But previously, in 2020, he had at that time lived in a house in Eau Claire, and the house was, shall I say, needed some repairs, we'll call it, including a very, very poor roof. So this gentleman had contacted a local contractor to replace the roof, and he actually paid them $16,000 for startup fees to actually begin the project. In April of 2020, they came back and basically, for lack of better words, called it a bait and switch operation, tried to get him to pay another $12,000 before they were even start, even though they had already kind of agreed to do some things on this house. Needless to say, our client was not very happy with this, and he's unable to frankly afford the additional unexpected expenses. So this company did nothing. Then they just would not return his money. They did no work whatsoever. His family kept reaching out to try to get to them to pay back this company, and they never would. Other organizations at the senior center would call them, and they just could not get this company to move. So we met him again in probably in September, October of 2022. So it had already been going on for almost 3 years. We did a couple of demand letters based on contractor statutes, and it took a little while, but in early March, they returned all $16,000. So that was very great. Our client was extremely happy. His family was extremely happy. They were so appreciative. They sent us some letters and some things like that, and have been able to pay for some unexpected costs that have arisen with his care and other things. But I'm just going to read a little excerpts from their letter. So, and this came from a niece of his. Says, from the start of our conversations with Holly, who is our legal assistant, we had hope and felt good about Wisconsin Judicare. Although we did not know about the Elder Rights Project then, we do now. The decision turned out to be instrumental for Kenny. They also said it's been a pleasant journey and awakening to discover the wonderful resources Wisconsin offers for citizens like Kenny and others. We are grateful to ARDC that recommended Judicare. And then there are many people in our orbit and Kenny's who would like to learn of this happy outcome and how it came to be. So it was just a really nice story in that one that we could get the actual results for him. It was nice also we didn't have to go to litigation, so we saved him a little time and got the money a little quicker. But then it was also nice just to see the real appreciation and then the impact that it is not only for the client but also his immediate family and a lot of others. So that was our story.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you.
Lauren?
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. As Allie mentioned earlier, my name is Lauren Hanvis, and I'm with the Elder Rights Project at Legal Action of Wisconsin. The Elder Rights Project, just a quick overview of what we do. We provide free civil legal assistance to individuals who have been the victims of elder abuse. And elder abuse covers a wide swath of crimes against the elders. It can be physical abuse, emotional abuse, or financial exploitation. So our attorneys are truly generalists. We handle a wide variety of cases, whatever may be available to the individual to stabilize them following the abuse. And so after hearing Brian's Elder Rights Project client story and mine, you'll see quite a bit of the spectrum, because my individual was a victim of physical abuse. And so our programs, we do coordinate a lot. And so it's great to hear the successes that Judicare is having as well with the Elder Rights Project. And so my individual, this was a case from a couple years ago, but it really exemplifies the community coordination that we always hope to have when we're assisting clients, to really give them a holistic result. And so my client, Jack, he was a 92-year-old individual who was living peacefully and independently by himself on his farmette in a rural area of southern Wisconsin. And then one day his son, Jack, or I'm sorry, no, I don't think he was a junior. His son forcibly moved himself and his family into the home without Jack's consent. Soon thereafter, the son began to take control of the residence and restricting where Jack could go in the home, what he could do, and he also began physically abusing Jack. He would regularly kick his cane out from under him. He would throw objects at him, and he would call him names and just overall belittle him. This all came to a head on Jack's birthday, when something set the son off, and he threw Jack's birthday cake outside of the house and shot a gun at it. And then he turned the gun on Jack and pointed it directly at his head. Thankfully, he did not pull the trigger, but he did push over the chair that Jack was sitting in at the time, and Jack sustained serious injuries. Jack was able to get out of the house and get medical attention and notify the authorities. And this is where we stepped in. So the police stepped in and arrested the son and removed him with a 72-hour hold. The son's family was still in the home. The police got Adult Protective Services involved, who immediately began finding alternative housing for Jack. And then Adult Protective Services got us involved to help with some of the other factors. And so when we met with Jack, once APS had him set up with a new residence, we worked with Jack to get him enrolled in the Safe at Home program so that he would have address confidentiality. This was very important for our next step, to file for a restraining order against the son. We wanted to ensure that that Jack's new address was kept completely confidential so that the son couldn't find where he was. So we worked with the Safe at Home program to make sure that his application was expedited so that we could get everything in place before filing the restraining order. We then were able to represent him at the restraining order hearing. Due to the severity of the allegations against the son, we were able to get a 10-year restraining order as opposed to the standard 4-year restraining order with a firearm restriction. So the son was required to surrender all of his firearms to the sheriff's department. After the restraining order was in place, we formally terminated the tenancy of the son and his family to remove them from the home. Thankfully, they moved out without incident, and we did not have to go through eviction proceedings. But then following their removal from the home, Jack chose not to return to the home. He had wanted to live out his days in this home and then leave it to his son, but he didn't feel that he could do that after this. But he was now empowered because the son and his family were removed from the home. He was able to sell the home and use the funds for his care. So overall, I think this is a great example of the systems working together as they should to help get the individual stabilized and in a safe place following the abuse.
Super. Thank you, Lauren. And Frankie.
Hi, I'm Frankie Newcomb from Disability Rights Wisconsin. So Disability Rights Wisconsin focuses on helping people with disability related challenges in a variety of areas. However, I work on the employment and civil rights team and mostly work on cases under Title I of the ADA, so relating to employment. So I wanted to share a story about the advocacy work that we do under Title I of the ADA to help protect people with disabilities who may be being discriminated against at work. So I had a client who early on during the COVID-19 pandemic, was infected with COVID and had a pretty severe case of it. He was hospitalized and he was placed on a ventilator. And after he recovered from his infection, he was diagnosed with long COVID. And his long COVID impacted his physical strength and also his physical stamina. He works at a factory and operates machinery at the factory. So he was working at the factory. He was hospitalized due to COVID. And then after he spent some time recovering, he returned back to work and was working with accommodations. So a reasonable accommodation is any sort of support or additional change at work that's needed in order for a person with a disability to perform their job. This client was given machines that allowed him to sit more often and lift a less amount of weight. And that was something that he was able to do full time for several months with no problem, working as a person with a disability in his position. One day he tripped at work. When he tripped at work, HR kind of got wind of this accommodation that was happening, and they also started questioning whether he was physically able to do the essential functions of his job. After talking to him, they decided that they believed that he wasn't because of his trip, and due to a biased belief about his disability, they put him on leave and then followed up and emailed and told him that he was terminated. And that's where I got involved. So, usually, if someone's already been terminated, the next step is to go through the complaint process via either the state or federal agency. And then, if that doesn't resolve the complaint, to file in state or federal court. However, if you can get someone to keep their job, that's really the much better than having to go after a remedy in a lengthy complaint process. So, I advocated for the client sending a demand letter to the employer explaining why their actions were discriminatory. They decided not to terminate him as a result of that and didn't process his termination in the system through Cobra. And that was important because it allowed him to kind of continue in the interactive process of determining whether he could do his job with accommodations, but it also kept his benefits active. So he kept his health insurance and he kept other benefits that were going on with his employment because he wasn't actually terminated while he was on leave. That was important because in the meantime, this client was diagnosed with cancer. So he was out of work and he had cancer and needed a cancer surgery. So while I was helping him work through the interactive process to prove to his employer via supporting clinician information that he could do the job with accommodations, I was also helping him get a further leave of reasonable accommodation. So leave on top of the leave that he was getting so that he wouldn't be expected to return back to work immediately, but would be able to recover from his cancer treatment and his surgery, which, because I was able to keep his job, he had insurance to pay for. So we got him 2 accommodations, kept his benefits, proved to the employer that that their actions would have been discriminatory and would have incurred liability on their end, which kind of got them to sit up and do the right thing, and ultimately was able to save his job. So that's some of the work that we do that the Wisconsin Equal Justice program helps us do. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, all 3 of you. Boy, I am just really in awe of what all of you attorneys and staff at the 3 beneficiary organizations do. You take these people who are in bad situations to begin with, they're put in a worse situation, and then you work with other community people to help get them in a better situation, better off hopefully than they were before they even got into legal trouble. Just really awesome, protecting people's finances and livelihoods and safety. I'm really, really appreciative of everything that you guys do. So, I always love hearing those stories. We've got a lot more people that help make WEJF happen. I want to give a shout out to the great board of directors that we have, a bunch of lawyers and law students in the state that really care about social justice and making access to justice more a reality for everyone, regardless of socioeconomic background. So thank you to everyone on this list. I also want to give a shout out to major sponsors. These are folks who have given, organizations who have given $10,000 or more in the past year to WEJF. So like I mentioned at the top of the call, Green Bay Packers gave us $50,000. And everybody else on this page has given us at least $10,000 in the past year. So we're really appreciative of those major sponsors. Now I'm ready to share with you more information about our 2022 annual campaign. A little bit about where the money comes from by donor type. Thought this was a little interesting. Most of the money comes from law firms. So you saw a lot of law firms in that last page with the major sponsors. And so that's where a lot of our income comes from. We do get a lot from individuals, and it's almost all attorneys in the state, but I'm glad to see they take their professional responsibilities seriously. Like I mentioned, we have a lot more foundation giving than we've had in past years. So we're happy to see that 11% ticking up. And we've got a pretty good chunk of corporate. So we're hoping to grow those foundation and corporate pieces of the pie for the next annual year that started April 1st this year. So that final number that we got to for 2022 annual campaign, $581,206, which is just absolutely amazing. Last year we raised $423,000. The year before we raised $365,000. So this is a big jump, and we're hoping to really keep the ball moving and keep that momentum going for the upcoming year. We have some upcoming events this year with WEJF. We're going to have a happy hour in Milwaukee with young lawyers. That's going to be in June or July. We're just in the beginning of planning that out. We're also, we were really honored to be nominated to be recognized for the Shine a Light recognition for the Hone Bridge. There's the Hone Bridge in Milwaukee for anybody who's not from Milwaukee. And actually, for those who are from Milwaukee, you can make fun of my explanation here in a second. For those of you who aren't from Milwaukee like me, the Hone Bridge, if you head out on 94 towards Milwaukee and you keep going towards the lake, it eventually is going to hit Lake Michigan and turn to the right. That's the Hone Bridge right there. So that gets lit up at night in different colors for different events, they lit it up this morning to match the sunset last night because it's 414 Day in Milwaukee today. Happy 414 to everybody in Milwaukee. But that Hone Bridge, they're now lighting up for nonprofit organizations. So WEJF got nominated and chosen to be a Shine the Light recognition organization this year. So sometime in September, we're going to have the Shine a Light Day for WEJF. We're going to light up the bridge in EJF orange and blue. And we're going to celebrate over at Boone and Crockett is on Water Street in Milwaukee. You can see from their patio, you can see the bridge from across the river. So we're going to hang out there and celebrate WEJF sometime in September. Watch emails and watch social media for more information about that. And lastly, we have our annual Howard B. Eisenberg Lifetime Achievement Awards Dinner. This year, it's in Madison at the Madison Club on November 4th, and that's a Saturday. So I hope you all mark your calendars and can join us. We celebrate Lifetime Achievement Award winner as well as an award winner from one of our beneficiary organizations. So, and we just celebrate each other and our commitment to social justice. So it's a really nice event. If you want more information about any of these, let me know. This call has come to a conclusion. If anyone has questions, you're welcome to unmute or chat in your questions. You're always welcome to contact me through my email, through the website, through the phone number. And if no one has any questions, then I wish you all a wonderful day, a fantastic weekend, and thank you so much for joining us today. Take care.